Thank you very much, Chairman. I do want to thank my colleagues for being here. I think this is a really important discussion that we're having today. It's such an honor to serve with all of my colleagues. I do think some who have spoken opposed to this legislation really don't understand the impact. There is nothing in this legislation that takes away any disclosures. Disclosures still remain. The same disclosures that have been in place for 30 years remain exactly there. This does nothing to have anything to do with Enron, a publicly traded company. It's completely different. This is private sector. This is opening up opportunity. And I think by arguing against this, ultimately it's taking away opportunity from employees to benefit. Such a privilege to serve with people like my colleague from Maryland, Congressman Delaney, who was part of this, of opening up opportunities to hundreds of families. Congressman MacArthur, similarly, opening up opportunities that changed lives. Congressman Trott, who's going to be speaking as well. They opened up opportunities to people who would have never had opportunity to own a company, to own that and to have a completely change for their family and their future. So I rise to support H.R. 1343, the Encouraging Employee Ownership Act of 2017. My legislation is based on a simple principle. Employees who own a stake in the company they work for every day want to see it do well and will do their best to make sure that that business succeeds. Their sense of ownership over details large and small make a real difference to the bottom line, and just as importantly, to the quality of life of the employers and employees. When the company succeeds, the employee succeeds. The business, in turn, receives a large boost in productivity, enabling it to expand its reach and invest in new technology and equipment. EEOA would make it easier for companies in Illinois and nationwide to let hardworking employees own a stake in the business they pour their sweat into every single day. This benefit also helps companies attract top talent, even if the company is just starting out. Warren Ribley, the Illinois Biotechnology Industry Organization, which represents companies that employ thousands of residents in the 14th Congressional District, believes, and I quote, he said, offering an ownership stake to employees is a critical tool in recruiting top talent to job-generating companies, and there is no doubt that an equity stake encourages employees to drive hard for success of that enterprise, end quote. Unfortunately, some companies are shying away from offering employee ownership because of regulations that limit how much ownership they can safely offer. SEC Rule 701 mandates various disclosures for certain privately held companies that use more than $5 million worth of securities for employee compensation per year. This threshold was arbitrarily set by the SEC in 1999. For businesses who want to offer more stock to more employees, this rule forces those businesses to make confidential disclosures that could greatly damage future innovation if they fell into the wrong hands. This includes business-sensitive information, including the financials and corresponding materials, like future plans and capital expenditures. The SEC's original rulemaking acknowledged these concerns. And these disclosures aren't just risky, they're costly. As the Chamber of Commerce has explained, the Encouraging Employee Ownership Act would instead help give employees of American businesses a greater chance to participate in the success of their company. EEOA builds off the Jobs Act reform, Rule 12G, which increased the number of shareholders of record that a company could have without SEC registration from 500 to 2,000 and exempted employee compensation securities from the registration requirements. This idea, championed in the Jobs Act, that the law should treat employee compensation securities differently than traditional securities, has not been extended to the SEC Rule 701. My bill is simple. It's a bipartisan fix. EEOA raises the outdated threshold for enhanced disclosure from $5 million to $10 million, keeping pace with the inflation every 5 years. We are taking something that is already working and make it available for even more companies and, more importantly, more employees. To be clear, issuers that are exempt from enhanced disclosure would still have to comply with all pertinent anti-fraud civil liability requirements. Furthermore, the employees purchasing these securities observe the business they work for every day and have a closer perspective on its operation that is not available to the traditional investor, thus negating the need for additional disclosure. We should applaud the employee ownership from the boardroom to the shop floor. I want to thank bipartisan co-sponsors of this EEOA legislation, especially Congressman Delaney for his hard work, and Congressman Stivers, Sinema, Higgins, MacArthur, Gottheimer, and Trott. I'd like to thank Speaker Ryan and Chairman Hensarling for their support in advancing this critical legislation. And Chairman, I yield back.